One.
All right, people, what is up? Welcome to Down the Middle. Ryan.
Nomal.
And we are talking about power today because the Democrats are seemingly trying to take over power as if they don't have the House, the Senate. And the presidency already. They want more. So more is always better, I guess.
Yeah, bigger the better.
The bigger the better, right? So this is Down the Middle podcast, so we like to maintain that moderation, and sometimes it gets tougher than other times. If you've seen our recent videos, you've seen that we are taking that real... I think we're taking a conservative viewpoint on a lot of these things. We're respecting both sides, and we want to do the same here, but this one seems blatant.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, the good thing we do is, like, we do take both sides at first, and then we kind of decide what's going on, pretty much. But with this one, I think it's more blatant or obvious or cut and dry.
Now, the premise of this video is that America is a democracy. It always has been, and in a democracy, the root of all things, like we say in our videos, the root is debate and conversation, and we want a compromise of ideas. We want... George Washington warned against the two-party system because he said it would just eventuate in one-party rule, and then the one party would kind of just get rid of the other party, and then we would have a monarchy.
He's a time traveler.
Yeah, he was a time traveler. Yeah, did you know that? And now, this has never happened before where one party was so radical that they kind of just discarded our system completely. And Trump did try to do it, which we'll get into. But now we see it now. So if we're going to get rid of debate, then we're going to kind of get rid of American democracy. And if we're going to have one side that makes all the decisions, then we're also going to kind of get rid of the people's choice. We're going to get rid of...
Yeah, it's going to be a real threat. I mean, a real threat now and also especially moving forward because... Once one group has, sustains or like maintains that power, they can maintain it for a while. Mm-hmm. So if you get that foundation set, it'll be a threat to anybody that, is against it and for many, many years to come too.
Yeah. So basically when we say they're trying to do a power grab, we're just meaning that they're trying to basically take the vote. They want the vote and they don't want the other side to be represented equally. And they don't want their decisions to have to pass through the processes that decisions have always had to pass through in America, where you have the checks and balances system, you have filibuster system, and the court can knock stuff down. They want to get rid of that. Basically, when Joe Biden speaks, Nancy Pelosi speaks, Chuck Schumer speaks, they speak the word of God. So that stuff just kind of goes right in, and it doesn't face the normal processes that legislation has to face. So we start with executive orders. Now, following the political scene, you've seen that Joe Biden has used a lot of executive orders, more at this pace than any other president. Now, presidents use executive orders. Trump used 220 in his 4 years.
Yeah, which is a lot.
And Obama used slightly more, I believe. And then I think George W. Bush used more than him. You use a lot of executive orders. They're a great tool. They're temporary, though, because when the next president gets in, if he didn't like it, then he'll just get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Now, Biden has used 40 in his first 3 months compared to Trump's 25. So the difference is there. He's using more. But the thing about Biden's executive orders is that you have other orders built into executive orders. You have the big, and we're going to talk about sub-orders right now. You have a big executive order, and you have stuff that's built into that bill. And Biden likes to do this where you'll have your executive order, but then there'll be a lot of little stuff. You see this with the COVID relief and the infrastructure that provides for like pencils in Afghanistan and stuff. Like stuff that isn't in the title is in the bill.
And a lot the way they also structure this is where they'll have the headline, which is what usually people just read, and it same as goes like small things like newspapers. People just read the headline and not really read the body, and that's exactly what's happening with a lot of these bills and executive orders, where you have the headline where it sounds great, but kind of like the COVID-19 relief bill that recently just passed. They just had a lot of things that weren't really helping the U.S.
Exactly, and you have a lot of money going to schools when you have school funding that's left over from the last one. So the stuff that Biden does is not so cut and dry. It's not. There's a lot going on behind it. Now, basically, the executive orders, when a president gets in, who's of the opposite party of the president beforehand, he will use a lot of executive orders to get rid of the executive orders of the former president. Now, Biden has used 19 orders to revoke Trump's orders. But in those 19, there have been 62 revocations of Trump's policies. Mm-hmm. Now, Trump used 7 to get rid of Obama's orders. But in his, there were only 12 pullbacks from Obama's policy. So you have the 62 to 12 dynamic here, which is a huge number.
Huge difference when you break it down, yeah.
Exactly. And so you have this executive orders are, when you use them, just like you just fire them off like a machine gun, it is an abuse of power.
Yeah.
It is, and you see this with Mr. Moderate up there in the White House.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to say abuse of power, but it's also another thing to be like hypocritical, right? Because when Trump was doing those 25 executive orders when he was in his first 3 months of office, there's a lot of chatter about it, right? We couldn't not see it. It was everywhere. But then with Biden, it's hard to even like come across that. So nobody really talks about it.
And for someone who pushes bipartisanship, like, I mean,
so it's not something you want to see.
It's the most important thing in the world. You push bipartisanship, then you abuse executive orders. So let's jump into our first talking point is the filibuster, legislative filibuster. What do we got with the filibuster?
So the filibuster, for those of you who don't know, basically is designed to prolong debate, right? And it helps the minority group.
It's a minority
right.
power, yeah.
And right now, the left is trying to take away the whole process of filibustering.
Exactly. So the filibuster, you have the Senate, and in the Senate, you have 50-50 rulings where the vice president is the tiebreaker. Right now, you have a 50-50 Senate. 50-50 Senate happens often where you have this filibuster. So the filibuster is basically just a prolonged debate, like Nomal said, that will push it, and eventually the majority side will advocate for a 60-vote rule.
Yeah.
That's what the minority is pushing for, to push it to 60. And then 60 is a large majority, and you get closure. So closure is when the debate ends. Filibuster is a great thing. It's called the soul of the Senate because as Americans, we should be able to come together in our Congress, so the people who represent us in our Senate. It's not a thing in the House. It was abolished in 1893.
Yeah.
And you should be able to get that 60 votes. If it's a good bill, then we like to think that we can get more than just the bare minimum amount of votes to pass it.
Right. It would make sense, like, for most people, or the majority, to agree that a bill would like to be passed. That's how you maintain the bipartisan element. Any bill you want to get through.
Yeah, exactly. It's always better if you see a bill that got 99 votes is better than to see a bill that got 55. Yeah. It's going to appease more people and just more people are more happy.
And this removal of the filibustering would now mean that instead of 60 to 100 votes, out of 100 votes, you'd only need 51.
Yeah.
And which is a huge, it's against bipartisanship.
Exactly. There's no more. And you see how this works in the House because the House got rid of it. And we were talking back and forth about what this means. And in the House, the minority leader, who was Nancy Pelosi for a long time, can speak on end. But it doesn't change the fact that the House only requires majority. So there was an instance where Pelosi talked for 8 hours and 7 minutes. Which, I mean, I can't listen to Nancy Pelosi talk for 8 seconds, but she forced the senators to listen for 8 hours and 7 minutes. I'm surprised they didn't quit, but it didn't get to overwhelming majority. The House is just majority.
Yeah.
Which majority is just one more vote than the other. Now, the Democrats want to do away with the filibuster. It is a Jim Crow relic, and it is racist, and it is stopping us from moving forward as a country. Now, this is a little bit hypocritical. I don't mean to call the Democrats hypocritical, because they never are.
But you're going to pull out the receipts right now.
I'm going to pull out the receipts, though. And that was purely sarcastic. So now we have the Washington Post, which is a left-leaning, they do everything now. They say that Democrats are pathetic for not protecting the filibuster.
We didn't say that.
We didn't say that. The Washington Post said that. In 2017, 30 Democrats signed a bill to protect the minority in the Senate's ability to block or delay legislation, a.k.a. the filibuster. So that was signed to protect the minority. Not the Democrats were the minority then, but they signed a bill, and there was a 61 people came on board for it.
Yeah.
So it passed. Now they want to do away with that bill. So that was a bill passed by Republicans.
Right.
You have Chuck Schumer using it vigorously. They blocked the wall from Trump with it twice. The CARES Act twice. They blocked COVID release twice. This is all with the filibuster. You have the Justice Act from Tim Scott, our last video, a great police reform act, blocked with the filibuster, 55 to 45. Sanctuary cities. You have that was supported with the filibuster. Abortion bans. Democrats use the filibuster to block that. You have the Republicans wanted to use the Senate to pass Trump's tax cuts because when you use that, it's a more permanent thing. That they didn't even try it because they knew that it would get filibustered. So,
yeah, I see. I don't think it's rocket science now. It's really if they've been using the filibuster this whole time, especially in recent times, and also the Justice Act. That's the most recent thing that's on that list.
July last year.
Yeah, literally July of last year. why would they have that sudden turn in now trying to get rid of the filibuster?
They loved it before.
Yeah, they loved it before, and now it's more like you could now tell that since they're the majority, they want to get rid of the filibuster. Since now the Republicans are the minority.
Exactly, and we talk about the Democrats' hypocrisy. We talked about how Trump tried to get rid of the filibuster. He wanted to get rid of it a couple years ago, and just like the Republicans are the ones who passed this bill to protect the minority, protect the Democrats. Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader then and the Minority Leader now, he told Donald Trump that we're not going to abolish the filibuster. It does horrible things to our democracy, which is true. You have Obama saying that ending the filibuster changes the game and it ends democratic debate. He said that in 2005. The same year, Joe Biden, in his most important speech ever, which he said that canceling the filibuster is the same as turning the Senate into just a rubber stamp on the president's executive orders or his bills, basically meaningless.
Yeah, so I mean, that just goes to show, like,
the Republicans love the filibuster. They love debate. We love debate, but people from the left want power.
Yeah, so now you can see from what they're doing that it's just such an obvious power grab, in my opinion. Yeah. And then also just add on top of that, so let's just say without the filibuster, if they do take it away, and if it's just a straight 50-50, then Kamala Harris would come in, then decide. But of course, you could probably assume that it would probably go on the left side.
Exactly, yeah. And you have two senators right now, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who are the two last moderate Democrat senators alive. Or maybe moderate Democrats. No, I'm kidding. There are moderate Democrats out there. But and they're pushing back against this. So if the filibuster, and we don't think that any of the stuff that we're talking about now is actually going to get through. But if this were to pass, you have two Democratic senators who are kind of holding the line on this. But, I mean, it's scary stuff. If we get rid of debate...
It's a threat to democracy.
I guess you just throw this mic out and just go home.
I mean, there's no point in having this podcast anymore.
I mean, that's why we're here, right? But, yeah, so the filibuster... we want the filibuster to stay. Republicans want the filibuster. When the Republicans are the minority, they want it. When they're the majority, they want it. Crazy Republicans. Yeah, but the Democrats just want power.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Yeah.
You want to start up with court packing?
Court packing, let's see. So basically, I don't have much on court packing, but basically court packing is now, the left side is trying to push from the 9 justices that we have currently to 13. And then also assuming that if they do, or if they are able to pass that they'll probably fill those vacancies up with 4 more left wing.
Leaning, yeah.
Left-leaning
now explain to me the difference between vacancies and court packing. Because this is just so complex that my brain almost exploded when I tried to understand the differentiation.
So, do you want me to bring up the Ted Cruz video?
Go for it. Yeah.
So, basically, there's a video, I think it was posted about a week ago. So, Ted Cruz is, I guess, in D.C. I hope so. I mean,
he was in D.C., yeah.
He hopes he's doing his job. Yeah. But he was in D.C., and then a law student from, he said an Ivy League college.
I think he's from Columbia.
I have no idea, but embarrassing. So he goes up to Ted Cruz and makes a huge argument with Ted Cruz about why you guys not allowing the court packing. Is the same thing that Republicans have done in the past, and especially with Trump with those 3 nominees. And then for some reason, Ted Cruz was trying really hard to explain to the kid that there's a huge difference between filling vacancies and court packing, but the kid could not understand the difference between the two. And he's like, don't worry, like, I'm from so-and-so law school, like, I know what I'm talking about.
I think he's from Columbia.
And I felt secondhand
embarrassed. This is a law student from Columbia.
Yeah.
Filling vacancies, so the Supreme Court, you work until you die. And now when you die, the president can appoint a nominee in your stead. That's not the same thing as adding the amount of justices to shift power.
Yeah.
I mean...
Huge difference.
I
don't know how else to explain that. Like I don't have to be a law student for that either.
I mean, the only, I guess if you were just like kill the court justices, then you could just appoint. That would be like a mix of filling vacancies and court packing at the same time.
That would also be like a number of felonies.
I just don't get it. This is a law student. This is what he does, and he goes to Columbia. I don't know what they're teaching them there. So court packing, you have 9 justices in the Supreme Court, and now you have a coalition of bipartisanship from Joe Biden who's going to examine the racism of having 9 or whatever he wants to do. Yeah. He just wants to examine whether we should push it to 3rd. And it's
you just create a committee.
It's a committee who's run by 2 people who were high up in the judicial system under Obama, but it's bipartisan though. It's bipartisan. He said it, so it's true. And now they want to push it to 13, which isn't because there's a 3 majority from conservative to liberal. It's not because that's not why. They don't want that. They picked a number out of a hat, and that's why they want to push it to 13. So now we want to just say that we both think that Donald Trump rushed the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett at the end of his. It's just, it's not traditional for a president to push that fast.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was pretty blatant. Like, just how blatant, like, what's happening right now is more like Trump just wanted to get that last second in, you know, justice and then try to maintain whatever Republican power that we've had, or at least in the Supreme Court.
And now, we don't support that. The only thing that we were talking about before is that you see Biden come out and he has he's lied about pretty much everything. This is his great push on unity, is destroying the Republican Party. And now Trump, it just seems like conservatives who are in politics right now are a lot more rational than liberals who are being appointed. And it just seems like it would be more harmful to a conservative to have a liberal majority than it is for a liberal to have a conservative majority, because conservatives, they want the filibuster even when they're the majority. Once the Democrats get power, they want to do away with that. So it just seems like it's just safer. Conservatives tend to be more moderate right now, and I do honestly believe that liberals have a far bigger shift to the extreme left than conservatives have to the extreme right.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can believe what you want to believe. You could be left or right. It really doesn't matter. But what matters is that you're advocating for both sides, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we've seen with the hypocrisy from the left. Yeah. And then with the filibuster, and now trying to get rid of the filibuster. And on top of that, was it Chuck Schumer that said that when former President Trump was trying to get rid of the filibuster?
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. So and then that's another example of Mitch McConnell saying like, no, but that would hurt the minority.
And Mitch is the person who is the most victimized, since everyone's a victim, by the filibuster in that situation. He's the one who is the Senate majority leader for the majority. The filibuster is what's hurting him the most, and he's saying we still need this. Put Chuck Schumer in that situation. Let's see what he says. So Trump appointed 3, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. FDR tried to pack the court in 1937. And Joe Biden in 1982 looked back on that and said it was a bonehead idea. And he said that he wouldn't do it in debates. He said that, well, he didn't say he wouldn't.
He said he wasn't a fan of it.
He wasn't a fan of it, and he said he wasn't a fan of the filibuster too. And I mean, I wonder if he knows what sports teams he likes, because he just says he isn't a fan of the only things he loves. And he wouldn't answer the question in the actual presidential debates. When Kamala was asked it, he was asked it. And this is a big thing. This changes our system, and you dodge the question. Great job, America.
It doesn't really give an idea where where you stand in terms of where you want to take that power.
Exactly.
Right? So I mean, that's a cause of concern.
Usually, no answer is a bad answer.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, especially if you're in a presidential debate. If you don't have the answer, I don't know what to say.
But the Never Trumpers, you guys, you got us. Now you have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is one of the greatest female political icons in our nation's history.
Yep.
Just a pioneer, amazing woman. She said she was against it. The lowest that the court has been at is 5, the highest is 10, and she just comes out outright and says, don't change the court.
Yeah. And it's not like one easy process. It takes a lot to even just add one justice. So adding 4 justices and then having all those changes, it's going to take a lot, and it's a lot of time, money, and effort. So.
And Stephen Breyer, who's on the court now, he says you need to think long and hard about doing this, because what happens when you just say that the person in power can add whatever amount of justices they want, then the next person in power is just going to add justices. What happens if Biden wins, he gets this through, he would get 4, so we have a 13 judge court. And now the next president's a Republican, and he says, well, guess what? I want to put in 3,000.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but he'll put in 2 then, and then the next one will be a Democrat. He'll put in 3, and then all of a sudden you have 35 Supreme Court justices. The Supreme Court is our most honorable and traditional and important branch of government. They are the ultimate checks and balance system. And if you're going to take away their credibility, then that does a lot of harm.
Like Ryan said, it's just going to go back and forth, right? And I do think that a part of this is a byproduct of former President Trump, like adding that last Supreme Court justice. Yeah. And this is their way of trying to mitigate or try to curtail the conservative majority in Supreme Court. So I don't know. We can't sit here and say, well, maybe if he didn't do it, then this wouldn't have happened. We don't know for sure, but I think it definitely did have an effect on it.
It did. It definitely did. And Trump was wrong to do that. And but I understand their intrigue into packing it. I mean, I try to understand it from not a I just want power viewpoint, but from a Trump did this. But then I also understand the conservative viewpoint of Joe Biden has not been honest. He has not been the president that he. There's a huge difference between candidate Biden and President Biden. And I mean, do we? You want your nominees on the Supreme Court to be somewhat moderate? Nomal said, they hear both sides. Do we really trust Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever's pulling the strings, because someone is whipping him when he gets back to the White House? Do we really trust them to appoint someone who's going to hear that conservative side? I don't.
Yeah, and you could say one thing and do another thing, right? And like the way
Wait, you can say one thing and do another thing?
I had never realized.
Really?
But
it's Joe Biden. He needs to hear that.
but so following up with that, Joe Biden has been trying to portray himself as a moderate.
That's what he ran as.
Right, and then what we've been seeing right now, at least from the left side, and I think he's easily influenced as well in general. But I think with the whole themes that have been playing out with the filibuster, DC statehood, which we'll be getting to right now, and the Supreme Court packing, it's just hard to say that if they do pack it, that they'll have moderate justices appointed.
Exactly. So good segue. Let's jump into D.C. statehood. So Washington, D.C. is a district. The District of Columbia has been set aside by Virginia and Maryland. In the Constitution of the United States, the Founding Fathers said they don't want this, where our Congress is based, to be under state control. They want a just Congress jurisdiction that's exclusive. There's an amendment that says it, and now Joe Biden wants to make it a state. The 51st state in the United States. So goodbye, American flag. We're going to put one right here. Or maybe we'll figure it out. So you have D.C., 700,000 people. They vote 74% of voters.
So voter registration is around 74.6% Democrat, and then 8.6 or something about Republican.
So slight difference, and it's close. 92% of them voted for Biden in 2020, and then a very low 91% for Hillary in 2016. So it's a pretty bipartisan place. Now, the big question about this, because you make D.C. a state, and you get 2 senators, you get House. They already have electoral votes, so you don't get that. But you get senators, you get House. I mean, why even abolish the filibuster if you're going to make D.C. a state? Now, the big question, and I would love someone to put Nancy Pelosi on a lie detector test and ask her this question. Why? Because the reason they're pushing Washington, D.C. as a state is because it's voter suppression and it's racist that they're not a state.
Right, that's how they're portraying it, yeah.
Now, conservatives can be racially profiled. They can be marginalized against. So if Washington, D.C. voted 92% Donald Trump last year, put Nancy Pelosi on a lie detector and ask her, would you support turning it into a state? And let's see that lie detector explode. As she sits there and she sweats and she's like, yes, I would support that. Let's just see that lie detector just go up in flames. I mean, what is there to say about that one?
So what I want, first I'll touch up on the Founding Fathers and the Constitution, right? So I think the right side at least argues that, according to the Founding Fathers, they didn't see this coming. They didn't see the population, increase in DC. They didn't ever see it coming. So me personally, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not make a state. But then the left side kind of argues that, they also didn't see the 37 other states that came about after the. Wait,
but George Washington was a time traveler.
He didn't see that coming.
Skip that part.
But so you can't also. I don't think that's a really good argument. But what I think is the main reason for me, at least, of why DC shouldn't be is it's already a federal city in America. Shouldn't be. Yeah. That's the only federal city in America, right? And it also has 535 representatives already, and then 50 House members that are already overseeing the financials of DC anyway. So it already has a lot of power and money invested into DC.
It's the House
in general.
It's where the Founding Fathers said they want an exclusive jurisdiction that Congress is in control of, and they don't want that being under a governor. Or it makes a perfect amount of sense. It's the most important place in America by far. It's the most important place in the world, Washington, D.C. And they want to turn it into a state. Who's going to be the governor? Governor Cuomo? Gavin Newsom is going to run the world? And just to point out that every time that America has admitted states, they usually do it in couples. You have a blue state and a red state, Alaska and Hawaii.
To make sure it's bipartisan.
Because something about the Founding Fathers was they wanted the two-party system, and they didn't want one party to have too much rule, hence two-party. So they didn't just say that you could just admit one. They didn't say that you couldn't, but you didn't want to just admit one state at a time and just give one side. Because like you said before, you give one side power, one radical side just just power without any repercussions, it can be very hard to get that power
Very
back if they're
destructive,
crazy
too.
enough. Yeah,
And a lot of things will be destroyed in the course before there'll be any type of regularity.
yeah, exactly. So seems a lot to me like those Democrats want some more power.
Yeah, and then also going back to the voter suppression and doing it for voters' rights, I also read a good line that said, if Democrats are generally concerned about voting rights for DC citizens, they would just redraw the borders, and then just redraw the borders around the actual district, or 1 or 2 mile radius, and then just give the votes to Maryland and Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. That would make sense, right? That makes sense. Then we could keep the flag. Maybe you can make the stars a little bit bigger for Virginia and Maryland, or something. But we can keep it though. You don't have to take. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 American flags in my gym. You're gonna take them all and send them back to me with a 51st star? I'm gonna have to. This thing is hung up by nails. Like, you don't know how much work I did.
Yeah, it's pretty high up.
Yeah, it's like 12 feet in the air. But
yeah, that's pretty much it with the DC statehood, I think. But I think we see a common theme with. I mean, it's more like a breakdown, but I think we see a common theme between the filibuster, as Democrats are the majority, and they're taking away the thing that helps the minority, which are the Republicans right now.
Yeah.
DC statehood adding, and they already have the 2 electoral college votes during elections, but now they're trying to add the Congress seats. Oh, they do, right?
Yeah.
Congress seats for DC statehood, right? So that's even more power to the left. And then the Supreme Court packing, which is obviously, there's putting more Supreme Court justices that are probably going to be more left-leaning.
Yeah.
And probably an act that was probably a byproduct of what Trump did at the end of his term.
Well, but you say that the senators that they appoint are probably going to be left, but they only voted 92% blue, though. So are you sure?
I think I'm 92% sure.
Okay. So a quick down the middle recap. I mean, it seems like they want power. The Republicans were standing up for them when they didn't have it, and now they want to take it away from the Republicans now. These systems, you have prominent left-leaning figures who say that don't pack the court. You have Obama and Biden saying don't end the filibuster. You have George Washington saying don't make Washington, D.C. a state. But those people don't matter. So it's just what the radical left wants. And right now they want power. This is a moderate podcast, but just because it's a moderate podcast doesn't mean that when one side is being way too radical, we can't call them out for it. And Donald Trump was wrong to try to end the filibuster. He was wrong to appoint Barrett, and he did stuff wrong then, but at no point did the Republican Party say we're going to seize power and eliminate Democrats forever. I said all my words.
Yeah, I mean, I said my breakdown right before yours, so.
All right, so then we're good. We will be back with a part 2 for this video very soon. We're going to record it right now.
And that'll be more so social.
Yeah, no.
Right?
Social will be part 3.
Oh, that's part 3.
We're going to do
I'm skipping ahead.
We're going to do immigration. We're going to do a lot. But we're going to make these videos a little bit shorter for you, all right? So we'll catch you guys soon, all right?
Peace.
Peace out.